So today, Cindy is going to share with us what she does in her county, her rural county, to support accessible candidate information. Cindy is at the School of Communications in East Carolina University, and I'll turn it over to you now. Let me pull up your presentation.
Okay, thank you. So I appreciate your coming. I hope some others will be able to see this online because I'm pretty passionate about this project. So the thing I started was a candidate information website here in Pitt County, North Carolina. I don't know that we're fixing rural voting deserts, but we're certainly trying. So I'll tell you in this presentation how we got started, some of the challenges, some of the lessons learned, and how you can consider doing the same thing where you are. So you can go ahead and skip, or go ahead. Next slide. Thanks. All right, so this is how we got started. In 2017, the election was coming up. It was a municipal election, and I was trying to be a good voter and look for information about candidates for the town council where I lived, which was Winterville, North Carolina, population 10,000. It's basically a suburb of Greenville, North Carolina, which is a college town of 90,000. And I'm pretty good with online research, and I could find only the barest of information about my town's town council candidates. I found, a little bit, but not much. And so the next day I called the town clerk, and the town clerk said, you just missed it. We had a candidates forum last week. That was the only forum there would have been. I don't know that I didn't know about it, and I don't know that I could have gone to it even if I had known about it. And so it kind of put the thought in my mind that there needs to be a place for people to go to find out information about local candidates for office, where there isn't the money for advertising and, where it can be easily accessible. And so while there is a daily newspaper in Greenville, North Carolina, it at that time, and probably now or even less so, it didn't provide information about candidates outside of Greenville. My county is Pitt County, North Carolina. It has about 175,000 people with 10 municipalities, ranging from the smallest is 49 people to the largest is Greenville. Like I said, that has about 90,000 people. So, but even if the newspaper had information about my town's candidates for town council, it would have only been open to subscribers, and the story would have been gone the next day, right? So I wanted to find a way to change this. So go ahead, you can go to the next slide. So I'm imagining this isn't new to any of you, but journalists have been laid off by the tens of thousands. There's not as many local newspapers as there used to be in many parts of the country. And even if they are still around, a lot of journalists have been laid off. I used to be a journalist for many years. So this was one of my reasons why I was interested in this project, is that for years as a journalist in Northern Virginia and North Carolina and later Florida, I did do all these candidate interviews and candidate research and provided information about candidates. And so while what we do is definitely not replacing journalism by any means, it at least does provide some information. So what I put here in these little boxes on the screens are just a sample of what some of the information our candidates have provided. We provide information on candidates for every municipality in our county. For this upcoming election, I think I have to contact 68 different candidates. Go ahead, you can go to the next slide. So in 2020, I applied for and got an internal grant at my university, a couple internal grants totaling $13,000, although you could start this project for so much less than that. But here's what I did with the money. So we got set up for the first time for the 2020 election. And so we used that money to pay for 4 billboards at major intersections in our county. We had 10 bus shelter ads. We had 1 bus wrap. We paid for, you see the Voter 411 logo. We paid an art student $500 to design that logo for us. And we had her sign over the rights to us in perpetuity so that we could keep using it on our website. We got all the candidates' names and contact information from the website of our county's election board. And for a time, that information even included photos of all the candidates. They don't do that anymore. I taught myself a little bit of web design. I'm not great at it, but I can do the basics. And so the remainder of that money paid for our web hosting platform, the logo, the advertising, and the domain name, paid for the domain name. We haven't really gotten any money since then, since 2020, although we have a little bit left over for the 2021 election for a little bit of advertising, but not much. Gotten a little bit since then for some yard signs, and we have 10 vinyl banners that we put up at major intersections around town, but that's all the money we've ever had. I do have a college student intern who does social media for me, which has been really valuable and really important because at the age of college students, social media is just a natural for them. But I do supplement some of what she does. And so this fall's upcoming election will be our 7th. So go ahead to the next slide. So here's why we think our project is important. We know that research shows that very few people vote in municipal elections. So luckily here in North Carolina, they do have all elections on, the first Tuesday in November. So at least everybody who votes knows it will only occur at that time of year. I think that's somewhat helpful. But even so, if major national candidates are not on the ballot, a lot of people don't vote. This is true all over the country. And even of those who do vote, voting definitely skews disproportionately white and middle to upper income. And so, as you can imagine, when people get into office, that is who they mostly pay attention to. So people are less likely to vote if they know nothing about the candidates. And if they were voting at all, they were often voting on the basis of yard signs, which don't say much, or on name recognition. Maybe their husbands, their wives, somebody mentioned a name and they happen to remember that name when they were voting. That's not a real good reason to base your vote. Now, some candidates did and do have Facebook pages about what they stand for, or they might have websites. And you can go there and you can find some things about a candidate, but then you have to go somewhere else to find where their opponent has information, if their opponent has information at all. And sometimes there's 2 opponents. So that's really hard to do. So what we try to do is provide information about candidates running for the same office in the same place. So go to the next slide, please. So here's what a page on our website looks like. So we have the candidates for each race side by side. If there's 3 candidates, I'll put 3 candidates on a page. And so this isn't showing you the whole thing, but it's North Carolina House of Representatives District 9, voters vote for 1, there's the 2 candidates, their pictures, and the page scrolls down to where they're answering all of our questions. Not everyone participates, but we certainly try. So go ahead to the next slide. Oh, meant to tell you this. So here's what our analytics have shown. So in 2020, the first year of our project, with the billboards, we had 2,700 unique user page views. That doesn't sound like a lot, but some of our districted county races were decided by fewer than 500 votes. So 2,700 votes, it could have definitely made a difference in the outcome of some of these races. By far, our best voter penetration are in the years when elections are local only. The last of those was 2023. That year we had 1,600 unique user visits. And again, that doesn't sound like a lot, but there were only 12,000 votes cast in our entire county that year in the municipal elections. So 1,600 out of 12,000 votes. We had a potential penetration rate of 13.7%, 13.2%, which wasn't bad. Unfortunately, in North Carolina, school board races and all county commissioner and other county county positions are held on the same year as presidential elections. And for us, with a larger penetration, with a larger turnout, our penetration rate isn't quite so large or so strong. So here's the challenges we've had. Challenges are money. You could definitely start this project for less than $1,000. Though we tried to maximize the fact that we had that one-time grant, we tried to pay for our domain, or we did pay for our domain name for a 5-year period, not a 1-year period, to maximize that money. We paid for our web hosting site for 5 years in advance, and we do pay for the version that allows us to get technical help because I need it. Labor, because I'm a college professor, I'm able to do this during the day. I get paid anyway, so I certainly don't get paid anything for this, nor am I trying to, although I won't do it forever. My college intern was also free, so you'd have to find a volunteer willing to do this work or get a grant to pay a volunteer to do it. Candidate participation can be a challenge. Some will answer my emails, my letters right away. Some I have to contact 6 times, 7 times, 8 times by email. I try to do it by email, but sometimes I have to reach out by a snail mail letter. In the end, we're calling them, and some just won't. I've had some candidates from small towns say, I know everyone in town, I don't have to do this, and so they won't. And it's true that what they're basically saying is they're saying they know enough people who will vote for them to get them elected. But it's not really the point of the site. The point of the site is to get candidates on the record telling the public what they stand for. And while this doesn't force them to do what they said they stood for, at least it's on the record, at least it's in print somewhere, which I think is important for, elected officials to be held to account later. Name recognition, that's a big challenge too, is getting voters to know about us. I wish I had more money for publicity, but I don't. One thing I wish we'd done is come up with a shorter, more easily remembered domain name. And so our domain name is www.voter411enc.org. ENC is a pretty well-known acronym for our area, Eastern North Carolina. And I'll be honest, when we first started, we intended to represent a number of counties in Eastern North Carolina. As it turns out, I just didn't have the time. I just didn't have the time to do it. And so it really is just my county of Pitt County. So if I had it to do over, I would have made the name just say Pitt. I think it would have been easier for people to know. So as for social media, we reach out to civic groups. We reach out to the political parties, the county political parties, although neither one has helped us out a lot. Candidates will sometimes repost our social media. We really appreciate that. We think it helps. My best social media hit was when we post on nextdoor.com, truthfully, and I'll post there 3 or 4 times during the election season. Another challenge is straight ticket voting. This is no surprise to you, but so many people, if they are voting, they just do the straight ticket from the top of the ballot to the bottom. And here in North Carolina, state law just changed so that every person on the ballot has to declare a political party all the way down to the school board. So that's a challenge for us. And someone who really just wants to vote straight ticket, they're probably not going to go to a site like ours anyway. So that's a challenge. We, however, never ask about political party. And so of the hundreds of candidates I've gotten to respond to our survey, only one has ever mentioned political party. And so I'm pretty grateful for that. It helps us to make the case that we really are nonpartisan. So go ahead to the next slide, if you would. So lessons learned, domain name, pick something short. We also didn't realize until later, we should have, but we didn't realize until later that Voter 411 belongs to the League of Women Voters. You probably know that. So it is different having it be voter411enc.org. But what is the part of that that people are going to remember? They're going to remember 411, Voter 411. So if they go to Voter 411, they're going to go to the League of Women Voters. They're not going to go to us. So I would urge you, if you do something like this, think of a really simple domain name to the best of your ability. Another thing is what to give candidates. So this page right here, the County Board of Commissioners District C, you can see one candidate on there who responded. His opponent did not respond. So up until last year, since I have had access to candidate photos at the County Board of Elections website, I would include both their name and their photo, whether they participated or not. I have since rethought that because I'll be honest, there are people who will cast a vote on the basis of photo alone, and I don't want to participate in that. I don't think that's a good way to base your vote. And I also want to give something to the candidates who will participate. So they can have a photo, their opponent gets their name, but their opponent won't have a photo and won't have their survey. Have a good short questionnaire. That's our entire questionnaire right there. It's only, 8 questions. And you can see the last 3 are really open-ended where candidates can answer really in any way they want, just in case there's something important to them that we didn't ask about. Another thing is, please steal our ideas. So what I would love to see is a state or national group take this up. I haven't had any luck getting any grants for my program. And the main reason is that I don't really need money. What I need is for someone to do this, someone to create a program, at least at the state level or national level, that could be branded in such a way that people, no matter where they lived, would kind of know where to go. Now, Ballotpedia, you may be familiar with Ballotpedia. They've to some extent done this. Their participation rate isn't great. I find their website kind of cluttered and hard to navigate, but somebody should do this project. Somebody in, civic engagement or voter engagement or some pro-democracy group, and I would be happy to pass on everything I've learned. Okay, so I'm open to questions. Yeah.
Hi, my name is Erica Burrows-Girardi, and I'm with County Health Rankings and Roadmaps. It's a program that's based out of the University of Wisconsin in Madison at our Population Health Institute. So thanks for doing this. Our research that we reported on last year around civic health and civic engagement and civic participation showed exactly what you showed, that there is a huge dialing back of the information environment, and there's deserts across the country. I mean, it doesn't matter what state you're in. Getting local news is becoming harder and harder to do. So we have these major outlets that are just constantly, you just hear the same story over and over and over. So you don't really get to know your candidate. So thank you for the work that you're doing. If you try to get candidates to participate in your project, were you able to leverage another candidate's decision to participate to, kind of convince his opponent or her opponent to participate?
I do tell them that. I do reach out and say, hey, your opponent's on our site. We'd love for you to be on there too. I don't know if that's always worked. I think it might have. In some cases, it doesn't. But yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
Jess?
Hey, I've got, thank you. Yes, I'm the chairperson for the Marshall County Democratic Party in Marshall County, Tennessee. Love what you're doing. Every election cycle, because we definitely live in a news desert. And so people have reached out and asked for this kind of a resource. I wish that the local county election commission would take it on. I think that they would be ideal to do this type of work, but they don't. But anyway, I have a good working relationship with my county election commission, so I'll definitely be asking them why not. I get my best guess is they're going to say funding. We don't have the funding to do something like this, but as you mentioned, it's relatively low cost. I am slightly concerned that you're not compensating yourself for the project management you're doing, because then trying to convince somebody else to do it for free may or may not work. But that being said, I do have some questions. Are there any, are you doing any analysis of of those people that are using or accessing the website? Is there any type of follow-up survey that you're sending to those folks to understand, if using your resource has changed their perspective on who they're going to vote for? And I'm also really curious about who's out there looking for this information, if there's any way to sort of align that with particular, I don't know, demographic or political party, or any way of knowing like who's using this information.
Great question. I wish I had. That's been something I just have not been able to fit in. But people have asked that question. It's a good question. But
Yeah,
I don't.
heard. I hear that. And then another question I had really had to do with like, as you have built this project and as you're sort of like, who can take this on? Like, have you had those conversations locally with, you said you talked to your like local parties and they're like, meh, which is what it is. But have you talked to the county, to see if they, or like a chamber or any other type of entity to see if they might take it on?
I have not yet. I guess I've been more interested in a bigger organization, a geographically bigger organization who can do this in many places. That's what I would more like to see than the piecemeal efforts. Here's an interesting thing. And I haven't reached out yet, but I wondered if it could be something the American Library Association could take on. Although having said that, my local libraries won't even post a flyer about it. They're so scared that it is not partisan.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, when I lived in Anchorage, they definitely sent me like the voter information packet, which was like this, but it also included ballot initiatives and other things that people were voting on. And then I know I saw something in Oregon, I think either statewide or just maybe the Portland area or something like that. Because when somebody would not respond, the effort was nonpartisan, but people's response was very partisan, and their interest, like whether or not they wanted to participate or didn't want to participate. I think that anyway, so they would actually sort of be like, instead of just, I think on your slide it was like awaiting candidate response, they were a little bit snarkier and kind of were like, we've reached out to this candidate multiple times to ask them to respond, and they've refused to respond. They don't want to give us this information. They don't want to share this information with the general public or whatever. And not those words exactly, but have you ever considered being a little snarkier about the people who refuse to participate? Because you're putting in a lot of effort to get them to respond, and they're not.
I don't have that on the individual candidate locations, but I do have it on the main web page, so that people see this paragraph that says, we reached out to every candidate multiple times.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know.
I just think it's so incredible what you're doing. I'm definitely going to look at it. And if we can find a way to weave it into some of our volunteer work, we will. And I'm also going to copy and paste. So we got Contest Every Race reached out to us, and they do a lot of social media marketing for progressive causes, yada, yada. We didn't get that grant, which is fine, but they referenced the Vote Save America grant, which is an innovation grant up to $5,000. So I'll just put that in the chat for you and anybody else in the room who might be interested in.
Thanks. There's one thing I didn't mention, and this probably is something other people know, and I do know, but I didn't pay enough close attention. But if you do a project like this, definitely pay attention to copyright, because I in one of our first years used a tiny little thumb-sized photo of an I voted sticker, and I know better, and I intended to replace it and forgot about it. Well, you know, the bots kind of track those sorts of things, and that belonged to a news outlet, and they wanted $900 for me using that picture of an I voted sticker that I could have taken myself. Talked them down to $250, but I still had to pay it. So be careful of that.
I'll just share my experience of using one of these guides, so similar to what you're doing. In the last election, I forgot it. I was planning to bring my little guide, some similar to what you're doing. I was planning to bring it with me and I forgot it. And I'm not talking about one that's made by a party. I'm talking
Yeah.
about one that's, like you said, it's published in the local paper. So I forgot it. And I started voting. I'm like, I'm just not feeling comfortable without really knowing how these candidates feel. So I threw my ballot out. I told them, I said, I want to start over with a new ballot. And I looked it up and spent an hour in the ballot box. I'm sure they know we're not happy with me, but I'm like, this election is too important not to really consider viewpoints. Because there was a lot of local elections that I was voting in. I kind of knew what I was going to do on a federal level, but for the local ones, I'm like, I want to be a better citizen and really make, you know, decisions that I think are wise, as opposed to just like, oh, okay, like you were saying before, like I like their smile or whatever. And so I really appreciate what you're doing.
Well, thank you. I just want to see more people do it. And I just think if there was a single branded effort by a group that had the money to make the domain name known, that it would really help.
Thank you, Cindy, for your presentation. I'm Rick from Minnesota. And we have a program, I'll put it in the chat. We're a regional development and economic development and community foundation. We serve 9 counties in West Central Minnesota. So when Cindy, you were talking about that regional approach, we're doing some of that. I'm just going to put this in the chat, kind of our website that talks about our democracy. We have some different programs that we're trying to engage people to run for office. And that's part of it. When you're looking at small towns and they're seeing, we have a lot of stress on our communities. We have a county here that they have, I don't know how many elected slots, and they have, so the whole county population, 1 in 7 has to run for office.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, and so because we have Everett Town, they got the soil and water districts, we got city councils, we got county commissioners, school boards, library boards, and all these different entities. So it's a lot of stress on our rural areas. So one thing we're trying to do is educate people that you need to step up and you need to get involved. And you're right about the newspaper deserts. We've been showing some films and talking about that too. One was called Stripped for Parts. If anyone's ever saw that, you might Google that, Stripped for Parts. And we've actually had a couple newspapers close here not in our region, but close by, that were a hedge fund bought it up and basically closed it. And now we have kind of a muck paper taking it over. And I forget the name of it, but we're working with a fellow down here who is involved in the State Journalism Association, and he's looking at some papers that are coming into our communities that some person in New Jersey or something is doing it from their desktop, right? And they're selling ads and they're trying to frame it as the local newspaper. Well, it doesn't have city council reports, all these things that make our democracy run.
Right.
They're not in those papers. So kudos to you for doing that. And I think some of the conversations, it's one thing to put a website out and as you talk about trying to drive traffic to there and tell people it's out there, but the papers used to always be that conduit. So the person to person, how do you get person to person on that, and the organizations? And we talk about leaders without authority in our communities, people who aren't elected, but you go to the town, they say, oh yeah, Joe here, he's, you know, if you want something done, talk to Joe. So those people too can help out, but I appreciate that, and I don't know if anyone else. I'm going to Radically Rural, my second time. I went there, I think in 2000. When was it? 19 maybe or something, but before the pandemic, and I went, and so I'm going to go back this, and I hope we have some of these type of conversations about democracy, and we're actually going to put on having some national speakers in our neck of the woods in September to do a rural democracy program. But anyway, I'm sorry to rattle on here, but it's kind of I wish the fellow that was in charge of the program here in my organization was with us. I told him about this Zoom call, but he couldn't make it. But if you'd like to reach out, I'll put my contact info if anyone is interested, or you can find it, I guess, in that website I put on there. There's also people who work in that capacity, and you can see kind of what we're doing. And it takes several different variations, as far as sometimes it's a 2-day retreat or a 1 hour, whatever it may be, seminars and such. But anyway, I think it's so important for rural areas to recognize that this is an issue. This is an issue.
Yeah, very
And-
much so.
And we're not going to thrive, we're not going to succeed if we don't get people involved in our democracy. So there's my lecture.
No, that's really important. And of course, we need more local newspapers covering the candidates and the races. But I will say this, our website's available 24/7 and it's free. And so for those people who don't subscribe to a newspaper, or for whom the story, you know, is 2 weeks old and they can't find it, they can still go to our website. So one other thing I do, I work really hard on this, is I try really hard during the campaign season to get publicity for our website. I write news releases, I hound, you know, the newspapers that we have and the TV stations that we have. It's hard. I have to try to come up with a new angle to get them, you know, to pay attention, but I do put a lot of effort toward that too.
Do you have any idea of which of your advertising methods is the most effective? Like, do you think people are coming from the press releases or yard signs? Do you have any kind of idea?
That would be a good thing to know too.
Those things are hard to track, but you might have like qualitative.
I don't. I mean, we certainly had the most visitors to our site that first year when we had billboards. But no, I mean, I've had a lot of attention, again, based on Nextdoor.com, which is crazy, but it is. And I do hear, because I've also written some pieces that have appeared outside of my region, I will sometimes hear from people who will reach out to me from neighboring counties who we don't serve, but they'll say, can't you come to our county? We really need this. So I know there's a need, and I know people want it. There just needs to be a bigger outfit than just me doing this.
Hi, so I have two things. Patients from New Hampshire. I work for 603 Forward. I'm going to drop my email in the chat for you because we have two funders that I think might be interested in this. I think it's very complementary to the work my organization does. It's Progressive Alliance and America Votes. They have donor tables all across the country and help people do projects like this all the time. So feel free to email me and I will try to get you in touch with the right people.
Thank you.
And yeah, thank you so much for this presentation because like I said, this is very complimentary to the work my organization is doing. I know we're trying to build up a new accountability project, and I will definitely be showing them your website, and hopefully we can do something a bit similar.
Awesome.
Yeah, thank you.
This is awesome. Thank you, Patience, for that. What was I thinking about? I was thinking about, honestly, the civic engagement piece, Rick. Like, because we have the same kind of issue here. Like, I think that one of the reasons, like, one, we want to build trust in information. Again, I think one of the reasons why there's such this atrophy in information systems is a lack of trust. And obviously that's very much manufactured lack of trust, but we get to build it back in our community with our neighbors. And we've spent a lot of time talking about what is the framework for communications required in rural, because one channel doesn't work in any location, but it also doesn't work in rural. And then I would also just offer to the group, if you are, and Rick, I shared, like, y'all were recently hiring, and I shared that job posting with people in my Dirt Road organizing cohort, because we have people living in your region that definitely need to be working with your organization. But Dirt Road Organizing was a 4-month cohort. I know that the founder, Chloe Maxman, has been like a keynote at Radically Rural before I attended. But it's a great way for people who are like, I kind of want to run, but I don't know what the hell I'm doing, to really get grounded in like campaign strategy and like an ethic of rural progressive campaigning that isn't about, mudslinging, and it isn't about, fierce partisan politics. Because at least in Tennessee, for us, we still have anybody's gonna know what party I am. It's not like it's not a secret, but at least there's no D next to my name if you go vote for me or whatnot. But I think that there's just this need to like build community simultaneously as we like run in elections. And so anyway, Dirt Road Organizing is another really great resource for rural communities that are really trying to like do the civic engagement thing.
Thank you.
It's awesome. And also what we're finding too is some of the rhetoric from the national state is coming down to local. So even though city councils are nonpartisan, people are running with a partisan bent, and it's sad in many ways, because even some of our county commissioners are getting bullied by the other party, if you will, and it's a challenge we're all facing.
Yeah. Last year, so I always look at the analytics, and was it last year? Yeah, because our school board races are the same year as presidential elections. And those were always our most visited pages. And I think it's because they were not partisan. They were one of the few races we had that were not partisan.
Thank you, everyone, for sharing all of those awesome resources. Something Rick said about Radically Rural, we are going to be having one session focused on civic engagement. I think it kind of permeates a lot of the things we do, but we will have one specific session, if you're coming to the summit, about civic health, what it looks like in your community, how we can amplify it, and how you can measure it. So definitely something we're talking about, and I'm glad that you all are excited about that too. All right. Well, does anybody have any more questions, comments, stories to share before we wrap up?
Or if you think of something later, feel free to reach out to me. It's elmorec@ecu.edu. And
So
maybe-
I will include Cindy's email in the follow-up stuff.
Okay, that would be great.
You said stories to share. I'll share a quick one. I'm in a Kiwanis club, and I have a Kiwanis club friend. She took one of these classes that we held, and she decided to run for office. These classes, you can run for office, but they're not, you don't have to type thing. But she decided to run for township, and she said to me, I walked into the township clerk, who was probably and the clerk looked up to her and said, "What are you doing here?" And she said, "Oh, I want to run for office." And she was like, "What?" And then she was the first female to ever be elected in that township. But it was quite a fight because because she's a woman,
Wow.
there was a little campaign against her, but she won by a handful of votes. So there's
I
a
did a,
story.
I did a little bit of analysis on our participating candidates and how the election turned out. This was not the last election, but 2 elections ago. And women candidates who participated in our site were much more likely to win than male candidates. They were more likely to participate and they were more likely to win. Now I haven't done I would like to do a larger study of all the years, but I think it's probably going to hold up.
All right. Well, I'm going to make one last plug for you to come to the summit in October. October 7th through 9th will be in Keene, New Hampshire for Radically Rural. But otherwise, keep an eye out for more virtual offerings like these. And thank you guys so much.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you.